Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Gerald Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show. Well, welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm Daryl Scott. Our guest today is a man who I wonder if he has any free time. He's a preacher, teacher, motivational speaker, counselor, and an awfully good sax player. His name is Daryl Beebe. This will be one of the first interviews I do where I feel like I'm talking to myself since we share the same first name. Daryl, how are you doing today?
Never better.
All right, so tell me this journey of how you got to play saxophone.
That's a great question, man. My dad was a musician. And he played lots of instruments and everything. So we had instruments all around the house, but I was more into sports and all those kind of things. And I was very successful in my little league football team as a defensive end. But somewhere around that age of 11, 12, I stopped growing and everybody else kept growing. My dad, in our search of instruments in the house, because I love to play anything, but he was very technical and he would have me take out a book and all that. But the saxophone, for some reason, came really easy to me. We locked into it, and that was the rest is history.
So at the age of 12, 13, whatever, do you have influences of sax players? I mean, and if you did, who were they?
Not at all. I mean, like I said, my dad majored in music. I went to North Carolina A&T. So he could play anything. Like we had organs, piano, bass, guitar, drums, percussion piece. It was just all trombones, clarinets, all this stuff was in my basement. And once again, we would go down there and jam, and he didn't mind it, but he knew the education behind it. So he would come and work with you and try to get you to be a little bit more focused, which I'm really glad he did. So a little bit of the bad side of the story, he passed away. So he passed away when I was 13.
Ooh.
So, but I know it sounds bad, but and we don't have time to be preachy, but the power of a father speaking into your life.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, he said, I had all A's, I had A's in band. And he was like, this might be it. I said, but Dad, everybody's got A's. He was like, no, this is different. So but he really encouraged me in that way, and he kind of began to talk to me about excellence and sound, and your sound should go across you should visualize your sound going across the room, but that's why I say the power of what somebody says, how somebody says it, and for me to be 53 and remember what he said when I was 12, 11, speaks to the power of what he had to say.
That is so true. So he's passed away. Why do you persist at playing the saxophone? I mean, if you don't have that voice, you remember the voice, but the voice isn't speaking to you every day. So why do you keep going?
Yeah, great question. Because, and it speaks to more of the journey. After he passed away, I played in the marching band in middle school. When I went to high school, I put it down. And a good personal friend of mine was like, man, you got to get in the band. And I was like, man, I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? And y'all some nerds. I ain't going on it. So, I had all the stereotypes going on in my little 14-year-old mind. But man, it was the best decision I ever made, because my band director, Dr. Lemuel Dokes, I think I got in there when I was a sophomore, became a father figure to me. And he, was excellent in what he did, and everybody in the band was, you had to play, and he dressed excellent and in excellence, and he wanted the music excellent. One time he called me out. We were playing Sleigh Ride, the Christmas song. I don't think people know how hard Sleigh Ride is. And he called me out, and he had me play by myself, because I guess he could hear over in that saxophone session somebody was, messing it up.
Right.
And so when I played by myself, I stunk it up. And people were laughing, and he, this is back when education, people weren't all as sweet, and they could paddle you or, grab you by your collar. So he was like, "Don't you ever come in here sounding like," I don't remember his exact words, but it was something to that effect.
Right.
And I never wanted to feel that way again. So I would practice, and, and then he moved, that was a bit of that journey, but then he moved me into the jazz band. And that's where I fell in love. And as an educator, I try to tell people, you don't know the power you have, man, because he introduced us to Duke Ellington, Satin Dow, the Count Basie, Maynard Ferguson, just a plethora of musicians and art. But, not only that, though, he would have us playing classical stuff on the marching band side. So now you talk about exposure to music in a different way.
Right.
Yeah. So
first of all, I'm going to go off book here a second. Name me a band director that doesn't dress. Every band director I know or seen is always the flyest person on the group. Always. And right. I don't know if that puts more pressure on you, or the fact that you're like, I need to look like him.
Yeah.
So you're growing up in Detroit, and okay. Don't get me wrong, I always go, if you're in Detroit, there's this thing called MoTown. So anybody I talk to who's from Detroit, been around that MoTown era, is there a MoTown influence in your life from playing saxophone?
Strangely, well, I would say just kind of in the era that I was, not so much. But my mom, we would travel to Arkansas. Man, you're making me feel old here, man. You're taking me back. So we would travel to Arkansas, and we had these MoTown hits that we would listen to all the way there.
Right.
And even when we got there, I'd get in the car just to listen to the MoTown stuff, man. So it was, I mean, this is an incredible place to be. But what I think, a lot of those MoTown musicians, the Funk Brothers and all these, people don't know how trained they were in jazz. Like these cats, I mean, these dudes in the Detroit area, probably back, because my dad used to go play at a spot up the street from us. It was phenomenal here, man. So, the jazz scene here was, so I used to play when I was in high school. I'd go to a little club called Alvin's, and you would go up there, and I'm coming back to MoTown, but you go up there and you play, and if you didn't play well, man, those cats would say, "Man, sit down. You don't know the changes." You know what I'm saying? So this climate is not pretty. You know what I mean? It was not cute. You really had to be able to maneuver in certain spaces, or you better not show up. But all of the jazz training made you flourish in the more of this kind of, I think, like David Sanborn, he'll tell you he's not a smooth jazz saxophonist, but he kind of brought that R&B, brought it in, him and other folks. So, but long and short of it, MoTown has an incredible impact, but I think there's a lot behind MoTown as well in terms of the musicianships that those musicians had. I mean, they were different, man. They were way different.
That whole Funk Brothers and everybody in that era were just, it's to die for. I mentioned earlier that you are a preacher, teacher, motivational speaker, so forth and so on.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
do you mix all of this into your playing?
Mhm. Well, that's interesting. I don't necessarily think. I think a lot of times what you hear, um, from a musician, you hear the person. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? You hear when you hear, so you hear the soul, you hear their struggles, but also you hear their gifts or whatever. So as it relates to the saxophone playing, my gospel background takes me to a place where when I get to a certain chord progression, what I play will probably sound pretty churchy, would
Hmm.
sound black church. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna hear some of me coming through.
Okay.
But then also you'll hear my jazz training, you'll hear other things. So they sit separately because
Right.
if I get a call, I'm doing a wedding in a couple Saturdays. I'll do that. If I get a call to speak at somebody's graduation, I'll do that. If I get a call to go perform, I'll do that. You know what I mean? So, but I think what's important is that you can be, and I try to talk to students about it as well. I don't know the area you grew up, but the men in my block had a side hustle. Like they worked at Chrysler, but when they came home, they were painters.
Right.
Or they worked at Ford, but when they came home, they did body work in their driveway and in their
Hmm.
backyard. Everybody like had us. I don't know if you just couldn't make it on one income,
Right.
but most people had a side hustle, and you have multi talents and multi gifts. But the question is, why don't you use them? You can't do one and not do the other, So
And it's so funny now that the norm. I'm older than you, first of all.
oh,
Um,
all right now.
but
You look
there's
great.
the thank you. There's the 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 stigma is once you retire, you should do nothing. You should travel. You should do this. But I tell people I worked for 55 years,
Wow.
okay,
Okay.
or 50 years. Let's say 50 years.
Mhm.
And when that full-time gig goes away and you retire, you don't know what to do.
Mm.
Now you can have, if you didn't have a side hustle, because I was working 10, 12 hours a day, you just want to rest. You want to relax.
Right.
And I get that. But once that goes away, I got to work. I got to do something. Why I'm
Right.
doing this. But you just have to do something to kind of keep your mind and body active.
Right.
I, I've we've got to know each other over the last couple of months. I've watched 100 videos of yours.
Oh,
I,
thanks.
I do have this one question though. There's a video where you're out on the street
Uh-huh.
and nobody bothers you. So you either got clout or you had the police block off the entire block. It was like I kept going. I played it like 5 or 6 times, and I'm like, I don't see anybody. He is the man. When you do a video like that and you're kind of the man on the street, how do you keep people away from you? Because you're well known in Detroit. You are. So
Oh,
for
yeah.
you to stand outside and play, I can't imagine people coming up and wanting to shake your hand or greet you or something like that. How do you handle that?
Oh, that's a great question. And I've never had that question before.
Okay.
Um, I think the popularity thing is kind of new to me right now. And I still don't feel I struggle in that, man. I struggle. I'll go to church, man. You the man, you the man, you all over. So I struggle in that, but at the same time, it's been a dream. This is what I've been doing for a long time. It's been a dream to kind of, so I feel like I'm tapping the door, really. Long
Hmm.
and short of it, though, the in particular video you're referring to, I think it's Full Circle. The gentleman who led the production of the video picked out the spots because I'm a Detroiter. I think you're from Chicago or that area. I'm a Detroiter born and raised. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
My stories, my life is sitting on 16239 Burwood between Puritan and Florence, sitting off 6 Mile of Wyoming. So I'm Detroit all the way. And so if we're doing a video, I have to do it in Detroit. So we're
Right.
picking areas. Like you said, though, the time in which we shot was a great time. Kind of the end of the day, and one of the areas was kind of more in the it was kind of a little construction going on. So we're sitting on that side, not a lot of people. The other area, man, we wrestled with people that whole night, and they would come up, man, man, I love it, you know. If you look in the video, it's some people sitting down. I'm sitting on a little brick, little pad, like I think it was a little garden area, and I'm standing on these bricks. There's people to the left of me, and they know me, and they're like, "Are you Daryl Beebe?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, what's up?" You know, and I'm hugging them. But I think the Christian part of me, man, I just love people, and I don't love people. I can't stop loving them in like I love like their soul. I just love people. I did a concert down town in my city at the Aretha Franklin Amphitheater, which is, to me, it was the biggest highlight for so far of my career, to play down there. Aretha Franklin? I'm playing at Aretha. So, but while I'm there, my friends are there, like friends I grew up with. So one of my friends, Ken, he comes down and he stands at the side of the stage, and I'm on stage, and I'm like, Ken, on the microphone. And I see some of my other friends. And in Detroit, we have a phrase to say, "What up, though?" So I'm hollering, "What up, though?" through the whole concert, you know. Tell me what up, though, you know. But like I said, I just love people. And I feel the love is reciprocal. And I also feel like we grew up in communities, and I don't know, folks look at African American, but you're sitting in this community and you don't know the village that it is. Like,
right. Yep.
You got people looking out for you. The lady 2 houses down was my babysitter. I grew up with 7 dudes, and we all came out and played football and lived together for 13 years before we go to college and off to work. Like, it's such a village. And when you see those people again, it's like,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah.
That in particular, we worked through it, but Detroit is just, you know, it's my heart.
I grew up in somewhat of a similar situation. I grew up on what I call a short street. There were only like 30 houses, 15 aside. And our house, there's a church at the corner, then it was our house. And then it was, I got to get this right because they'll be mad at me, the Hicks, the Nevilles, the Whites, the Burgesses.
Yep.
So the elementary school was at the end of the street. So I walked from the corner down the street, around the corner. So we all, at some point, we all go to the same elementary school, but we all walked to school together. And coming home. Here's the funny thing. Not that I was a mischievous child. I wasn't bad. There was just stuff I wanted to get into. But if I got home late, somehow Hicks, Nevilles, Whites, Johnsons, whoever would call my mom. And I'm a latchkey kid. So I go home, I got to pick up the phone and call mom, let her know I'm home. And the first thing she'd say sometimes is like, "Why are you late?" I'm like, "How do you know?" Because everybody on the street, we had that kind of community. And even though my good buddy Wayne Burgess is in Detroit, I can't remember what suburb, but we still stay in touch, and we've been friends since 5th grade. And like you said, it's like it was yesterday. You just have to pick up on certain things. Where did you get this style? You've got I don't know. I pride myself on hearing the song and being able to tell who the artist is. There's a uniqueness to it. Where'd you get yours from?
Oh, man, that is a great question. I wish you'd have sent me the questions.
It's better to hear your answer spontaneously.
I'm just kidding. No, these are great questions. I would have to say, because I haven't really spoken to my college life and all of that, it's just an influence of different musicians, different times, different exposures. throughout a period of life. You know, my brother, man, his listening was very eclectic. Like he would listen to reggae. We would listen to Parliament. We listened to Rick James. We listened to the Police and Sting. We listened to the Who. And so my brother kind of influences what he heard. My mom, when we cleaned up every Saturday was, don't you go nowhere. You
got to clean up your room.
Oh, the room, the house, brother. Baseboards and stuff. Vacuuming. So we would listen to Gladys Knight. I remember, you know, all of this while I cleaned up. But my mom, you know, listened to some really good stuff. And my dad, you know, he had passed or whatever, but my mom had like David Sanborn records. And we had that big record player in the corner in the dining room.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had one of those old ones that was like furniture, but the one in the dining room, though, I would sit there, put David Sanborn on, and I'd play with him.
Mm-hmm.
Put Anita Baker on, and I play with her.
Wow.
You know, so that's kind of the style. But once again, you got a band director who has exposed you to Sentimental Mood, and oh my God, you know. So I'm listening to all this stuff. In college, probably started seeking my own sound. Prince had this whole album out that was just, I don't know what it was called, but it was just a bunch of numbers. So we were playing song number 2 and song 12.
Right.
So with all of that, man, and then when I was in middle kind of college, man, I began to get into the church and all that kind of stuff. So all of those things encompass, and a dad who played, all of those things help you create your sound. But it's funny, like you said, though, because I listen to Kirk Whalum, and Lord, I want to sound like Kirk Whalum. Oh, I love Kirk Whalum. Now I listen to Gerald Albright, and God, I want to sound like Gerald Albright. And I listen to my friend, and I want to sound like my friend. So it just never stops. But I think, like you said, at this place in time, I'm finding my own sound. I'm very aggressive. I can play smooth. I can play very smooth. But there's a fight in me, or anger, or something that want me to let you know I can punch you in the mouth. Because smooth jazz, you kind of got to sit in a certain place. You know, you can't just go crazy.
Right.
But I want to let you know that I could go crazy at any given moment.
You mentioned the fact earlier on that you listened to Maynard Ferguson. So I'm going to ask you, one of my favorite songs of all time is Birdland by Maynard Ferguson. Is that the anger you're talking about? Because that's no.
That's that yeah. Now I like the red. It's funny because I don't know if I heard the. Oh yeah. I've heard Maynard Ferguson do it. Yeah, he's all over the sky in that.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard Maynard Ferguson's Fire Shaker.
No.
Man, so we played that in high school. That tune is sick. I mean, that's a sick situation there, man. If you get a chance, pull it up.
I'm gonna pull that up. What's it called again?
Fire Shaker.
Fire Shaker.
But let me speak to when you say that aggression, though, like when you put people in in those jazz band situations, our friend of mine, Harry Patton, you'll probably hear his name eventually because he's an incredible sax player. I've always been in a situation where I wasn't the number one guy. So you got to get up and not get blown away. You know what I'm saying? So you better figure something out. You know? I don't know if you've ever heard of James Carter.
Yeah.
The James Carter. So when we were in high school, he's probably wrapping up high school. We'd go play with him at that spot called Out or Bert's place. You better not step on that stage with that man, you know, and not have something in your bag. You know what I'm saying? So that's that piece where you gotta sustain and stand and fight to make it through the show.
Is it
or the song?
Do you feel pressure from having to outplay somebody, or are you just kind of standing your ground, watching and learning?
Not at all anymore. But there were times where, you could, you know, in those situations, like I said, those older men, you go up there and you don't know those chord changes. You called off Green Dolphin Street and you don't know the chord changes. or they call up something and you stand up there, but you don't know Cherokee, you about to get blazed, man. So you had to be able to, and people do this naturally. Like I've had a show or something, people said, I opened for something, oh yeah, that guy you should have been this.
Yeah, you should have been the headliner. Yeah.
People do that. If me and a friend play, man, y'all killed, but man, you were the man. I enjoyed everybody. They do that. They have this competitiveness. I say in this space that I am at the sweet age of 53, I'm not competing with nobody. I'm trying. I feel like kind of like you mentioned, I know my voice. I know what I want to do. I know, and I'm comfortable in the skin I'm in. I got a lot to do to be an even better, greater saxophone player. A lot of work to do, but I'm very comfortable in the skin that I'm in.
If I could ask, what do you think you have left to learn?
Oh my goodness, man. There's this summer was one of the most. I talked to two people. I met Everett Harp.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing to meet him at a concert and you get to come up and say hi.
Right.
I met him before he was going to a show about an hour in, and we just talked. And he talked about, it's incredible as he is. You hear these other things and you want to, you hear Joshua Redman, you hear these folks, and you want to play kind of like them.
Right.
Because you got straight ahead jazz, you got jazz, you got, so on the straight ahead side, I can need to go back to that because really that's the foundation. There's still some other things that I can increase, my circular breathing, my double, triple tonguing. There's always stuff to work on. And I don't know I don't know if you talk to any saxophone player where they felt like I'm finished, I'm good.
Oh,
I'm done.
right.
So I feel like, once again, the straight ahead piece, straight ahead jazz, I really need to get back to my classical. When I talk about Dr. Dokes, he had me purchase this universal method book. I still have it downstairs. It's full of classical, songs, etudes, things that, because what will happen with life, being a preacher, teacher, father, blah, 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 I don't have time to do some of those things that I would like to do.
Right. That would be the other thing. Well, I think I've said, how do you find time? Because I just imagine, and I'm going to make an assumption here. You get up at 4 or 5 o'clock. I don't know, maybe you work out, you have breakfast, deal with kids, out the door to this event, and 2 hours later you're going to this event. The car's got to have a lot of miles on it, and you got to go in a lot of different directions.
It does.
But how do you manage that?
Yeah, it's not really that successful right now. My job is the executive director of college and career readiness and social emotional learning in Wayne Westland Community School District. So my 9 to 5 can be a 7:30 to 8.
7:30, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm really big on. It's funny, man. You mentioned retirement, man, and we look at scripturally. You look at Moses, and he starts his work at 80. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So he didn't. He wasn't 32 and he's climbing mountains and
right.
People. He started that at 80. So I always try to make the most of a day and figure it out. I will do, if you want extraordinary results, you got to do, I try to tell this to people. I can't do what the guy next door does. Right. I can't get off and come home and be done, and a lot of times even my job has work when I get home. So, but when I get home and I'm done with work and I ate, I've got to take an hour to write a song. I've got to, when somebody else is going to bed, like my colleagues would say, I would go to bed at 8, I go to bed at 9. I can't. I'll get off work and head to my partner's studio, Mark Dixon. He's the producer of most of the music you hear. But we both understand that if you want anything extra out of life, unless it's given to you or some kind of blessing comes to you, you got to work it. And as I'm 53, what is my countdown? The Lord said, I promise you 70 years. I got, so I got the dig. You got the work.
If that is totally true.
Yeah. No, the word is true, brother. It's just it's kind of a given. Get about 70 years.
Yeah.
Go over it, you can go under it. We've seen it all.
It is very interesting in talking to you and getting your philosophy and everything and understanding the music. I understand that you're tremendously busy. I get that. But I just want more music. I'm gonna be selfish about that.
Thank you.
With all this that you're doing, what's current musically in your life, and then what's next, and when will that happen?
Sure.
Will you take like 2 years off and then do another project, or that's the thing I'm interested in. How do you fit? Because it's not just I'm gonna walk into a studio and I got a song. It's not that. It's you got to write it, you got to rehearse it, you got to fine tune it. How do you do that? What do you do? What's next?
Yeah, great question. I am always working towards something. And so folks don't understand it. So you may see a single, you saw Full Circle came out. You saw Caribbean Paradise is now out on let me get to your listeners, all electronic platforms to download. It's out right now. But what you really don't foresee is the market of music has changed so much. Back in my day, it was so great to make an album, and you get that album and you sell the copy to a person for $20. That doesn't really happen anymore, thanks to Mr. Steve Jobs and all those people who swung the music into a different direction, where you can download it for $1 and play it for 7 cents, and
right, yeah,
which is not helping us. Let me say that I'm not Taylor. If you're not Taylor Swift and Beyonce, this is a whole different ball game. But I'm always working towards an album, is what I'm saying. So Full Circle's on the album. Caribbean Paradise is on the album. We've got 5 songs in the cooker. But those songs come out as singles, because from a radio promotion standpoint, I don't necessarily benefit from putting out an album.
Right.
Yes. I still talking about, my album will be out in January. Okay, you're gonna sell 200 copies. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even now, when I finish a concert and I say I have CDs, there's not a rush to me to come and get. Now, if they had a great experience or they still have a CD player, fortunately, our age group, is a bunch of folks with some cars and some CD players at their house.
Yeah.
But for the most part, people don't even make CD players in the car when they make them anymore.
Correct.
So with that being said, as you speak to the music, the master plan is to create a CD or a project, but I'm making singles along the way. And those singles will encompass an album. For example, if we're able to, we'll put out another Christmas song in the next couple of weeks. We'll finish the Christmas album next year or the year from that. We're not in a hurry to do an album, because who's buying it?
Right. I get it. That's been a frequent question of mine, because I'm old school. So I believe in, I remember going to this store, that store. We had Peaches here in town. You go and you spend 20 minutes going through the different catalogs and going through all the albums and everything, and you bought the album. But then I was talking to actually an educator from the Berklee College of Music, who gave me this history lesson of it's different. And now you also have to have a totally different mindset, which you've just explained, which I had never truly really heard from an artist. Like I said, I'm old school. I believe in buying albums, buying CDs, so you can get whatever you want. But now in this day of streaming and dropping down one song, I'm always like, how do you make money? How do you do this? Okay.
But why would you? My question is, I'm putting you on spot. Why would I make a song? The album I'm working on now, in my first albums, you'll see it's 12 songs. It's probably 10, 11, whatever. Why would I make 10 songs and you like one, and you got access to the one, or you like 4 of them and you download 4 of them? Now, I have made the album, and then I said, oh, this would be a nice opening song. It's got a nice tempo. Then we slow it down right here, and then we pick it back up right here. And so if you really want the album, you're going to have that,
Right.
But for the most part, you like Breathe, you like Full Circle, and I love whatever, and you download those in there in your hopper, or you listen to Spotify, which once again is giving me 6 cents a song. And it's funny to me too, like, because they'll show you, I mean, we could hit your calculator now and do some math. I've seen people who got 1 million, they've got 1 million songs. I mean, 1 million views or whatever. Man, that equates to like $1,000 or something like that.
God, it's so unfair.
People will be excited when they will share, hey, my Spotify has got 1 million plays or something. I'm like, that equates to a gig for me that I did on Saturday.
So actually, in this case, you are making more money from performing live.
In a lot of cases, yes.
Yeah.
If you're consistent with that. If you're consistent with that, you are. So that's the piece where you asked me what's next. My goal, as a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to go in and change my paperwork. I've got to change my bio. I haven't, and now this, my daughter always talks about this. She says, Mama, Daddy always shouts you out. So I have an amazing wife of 30 years. We met at the Kentucky State University.
Very nice, very nice.
See that. She's a sax player also. But I don't know where I was going with that, but I have an amazing wife. And the piece of it is, I think I kind of lost my thought there. Where was I going?
Wonderful wife. You're going to change your paperwork.
Oh, yeah. So my paper, that was it. Bam. Thank you. The paperwork says married 26 years or something when people read it off. Preacher, teacher, motivational speaker, I'm getting ready to work on a movie as well. So, yeah. So I gotta tighten all that up because my goal is to get out and start to hit these other cities and play in Denver and play in Cali and play in, and I have played in other places, but you kind of got a little bit more consistent. I'd like to. It's crazy because it can get so crazy that you don't have, you know what I'm saying? But I would like to probably be out of town at least once a month. And I got some years in education before I retired. Of course, when I retire, then I can do this for the fun of it full time. But I'm also a preacher, so we got to see which way the Lord leads me, because I'd be a pastor at some point in life. So
I can't think of a day right now that you have nothing scheduled. And that's me listening to you. It's not me living your life. Darrell, hey man, I tremendously appreciate this. I've learned an awful lot. How can we find out? Do you have a website or something like that that people can go to find out about your music and so forth and so on?
I absolutely do. It's DarylBeebeMusic.com. Daryl, because I know we spell Daryls in different ways.
Yes, we do. Somebody's
is wrong or right, but we spell them in different ways. So mine is Daryl, Daryl. My last name, Beebe, music.com. And then I'm on all electronic platforms of, Spotify. And if you've got Pandora, I've got a Pandora channel and a Spotify channel and all of those things. So I'm not really hard to find electronically. And then once again, on the performance side, my website has a booking form. If you complete that and send me some information or inquire through the website, I would love to get in contact with you. So
cool. We will do that. We will do our part here at the podcast to get your music out there and find out how people can get to it. But once again, Darrell, greatly appreciate the time. I know we've had a couple of hiccups as far as getting together.
Yes.
I'm so glad that we talked. I really am, man. This is nice. And your story is good. And like I said, we will do our part because your music is very good. So
thank you.
You take care of yourself. Once again, appreciate the time. We look forward to maybe speaking in the future. If you got anything new that comes out, you know how to hit me up. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to Jazz Flyte the Podcast. If you need to get a hold of me, it is jazzflyte@gmail.com. We will talk soon. See you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Daryl Scott.